Welcome to Ridgewood Talks. Through this podcast, we will be introducing you to some of the leaders and legends in our village. We'll keep you updated about fascinating local events. We'll dig into the town's hot topics and so much more. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Jeannie Johnson, the founder of Ridgewood Talks and Ridgewood Walks. The goal of these initiatives is to create a kinder, more connected, and more vibrant community. I'm thrilled to be hosting this podcast with my good friend and all-around wonderful guy, Jordan Kaufman. We look forward to meeting with you weekly and hearing your thoughts on who and what you'd like to learn about in our beautiful hometown. For now, be kind, do good, and enjoy this episode. Here we go. Hi, listeners. Welcome to Ridgewood Talks. As you know, our little hyper-local podcast is dedicated to discussing issues that impact the residents of Ridgewood. One of the most popular aspects of our show is our interviews with political candidates. Most of us understand how critical this year's national election is, but we here at Ridgewood Talks feel it is important for voters to know how local elections shape our daily lives too. Several candidates are running for seats on the Village Council and the Board of Education, but many of you may not know that a county election is underway also. Today, I'm excited to chat with Tracy Zur. She's a Bergen County Commissioner. There are a number of reasons I want to speak with Tracy. First and foremost, I have a deep respect for her and the work that she has done for the residents of Bergen County. Some of you may recall her involvement in Ridgewood's Feed the Frontline initiative. The success of that program is primarily due to Tracy's efforts. She founded the Bergen County Food Security Task Force at the onset of the pandemic, and in full transparency, I worked for the task force for several months, during which Tracy was my supervisor. And I just want to say that Tracy's contributions to hunger relief efforts are unmatched. She's the most prominent advocate in Bergen County when it comes to addressing food insecurity. Through her collaboration with local food pantries and hunger relief programs, she has consistently worked to improve food access and support to those in need. So we're going to talk more about that in just a minute, but I want to share more about Tracy's notable background in public service. Tracy has been serving on the Board of County Commissioners, formerly known as the Board of Chosen Freeholders, since 2013. In this role, she is focused on initiatives related to health and human services, public safety, and county finances. And some key aspects of her work include expanding access to social services, especially for vulnerable populations such as seniors, veterans, and individuals with disabilities. She has also been active in initiatives aimed at enhancing opportunities for children, especially regarding educational access and early childhood programs. Before her role in county government, Tracy was an attorney and served as a municipal prosecutor, and that expertise has informed her work on the commission, especially in terms of shaping policy related to public safety and criminal justice reform. Overall, she's recognized for her dedication to public service, particularly in making government resources accessible and beneficial to all the residents of Bergen County. And Tracy, we are delighted you are here with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Jeannie, thank you so much for having me. It is such a pleasure to catch up with you and to communicate with the residents of Ridgewood about kind of what's been going on at the county and really the importance of the work that we're all doing together and how all of our efforts are so important to continue to move our communities forward.
I agree. So to start off, I want you to explain to our listeners what a county commissioner is and what that role entails.
Sure. So there are 7 county commissioners. Their terms are staggered, and we run at large to represent the entire community, which is almost 1 million residents here in Bergen County. We represent all 70 municipalities. And county government provides the services that it doesn't make sense for towns to do by themselves. You know, whether it's large infrastructure projects or things where, we're providing domestic violence services. Not a town may not need to provide that by themselves. There may be several residents in that community that need those services, but to be able to do it at the right economy of scale at the county makes sense. And we do everything from our county roads, our county parks, our community college, Bergen Academies, Bergen Technical Schools, a county hospital that we run called Bergen Newbridge Medical Center. We run so many social services, as well as 911 dispatch, training our first responders. So it's really this umbrella of services that we provide to the county residents to make sure that we can keep costs down, do things more efficiently and effectively, and make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of the residents in all of our communities.
How do you prioritize these areas of focus? And according to what you think, what is the most urgent issue for Bergen County right now?
I think, everyone, when you go door to door and you talk to whether it's in Carlstadt or Cliffside Park or Cresskill, the needs are the same, meaning everyone is worried about the affordability of our community, making sure that our communities are safe, that their kids are getting quality education, that their parents can age in place with dignity, and that they're prepared for the challenges that lie ahead as a caregiver. They're concerned about the safety of our drinking water, the overarching reliability of our social services. So, I think that that's a very broad question of what's the one major concern. It is affordability. It's safety and security. But all of it comes down to those core factors of the things that bind us together as neighbors and as a community. So I think all of those things are critical as we go about to try and deliver services.
Yeah, I agree. And so when you reflect on your time as a county commissioner, what achievement are you the most proud of, and how has it shaped the county?
There's actually a lot that I'm proud of that we've gotten done over the last 12 years that I've served on this board. And I can't believe it's 12 years, by the way. It's gone by like a blink. What has turned out to be some of the more prescient moves that we have made. We made a decision to save our county hospital. And that was critical because at the time, there were voices that wanted to sell it to become a for-profit hospital or just liquidate it and sell the land. What it's really turned into and evolved, and why I was opposed to that move, is because it was a critical safety net hospital, providing charity care and services for those who are the most vulnerable in our community. It also was the only inpatient drug treatment facility in the northern part of the state. And was a critical player in making sure that we were combating the opioid epidemic that was really at our doorsteps. It's also one of the few facilities in the northern part of the state that provides inpatient mental health care. And as we've seen with the pandemic, the pandemic was an earthquake. The teen mental health crisis that has evolved afterwards has really been like the tsunami. And so to have a county hospital that is really on the front lines and dealing with all of these issues, and it really has been a game changer. And the culture up there has been critical in making sure that we are dealing with patients who are struggling with dignity and with grace and changing health outcomes for everyone in our community. I'm super proud of that. And I'm also really proud of the work that we've done on the Food Security Task Force that has now evolved into the Office of Food Security. I think, we just got an award from the National Association of Counties recognizing the work that we've done to build connective tissue between our food pantry providers and our social services. We have this no wrong door approach through using Oasis, kind of like when you get a referral from a neurologist to a rheumatologist with a click of a button and the burden doesn't fall on the patient. Similarly, now we have 31 food pantries and over 27 services that with the click of a button, they can make a referral and get people the services they need. And that's key because, as you and I have discussed a million times, food insecurity is a symptom. How we treat the underlying cause of that food insecurity is really where the game-changing work can really happen. So it's not enough to just stick food in someone's trunk. It's key to be able to connect them to the tools that they can put into place to change their lives and change their overarching situations. And that's where I'm very excited about the work that we're doing to continue to build this out, to include more and more services, and to ultimately incorporate all of our food pantries as well. So that's ongoing work, but it is something I am very proud of.
And you should be. I read recently that was crazy that the brain uses about 20% of our body's total energy, which translates to about 400 calories per day for a typical person to maintain proper brain function. So, making sure that our neighbors are fed healthy food and that they have plenty of it to eat is so important for all of us.
But it's true, actually, in a way, in the fact that we are only as strong as our weakest links, right? And when we have people who are struggling, we saw this so much during the pandemic. How do kids learn when they're hungry? If you're not getting that free and reduced lunch at school, which might be your only hot meal in the course of the day, how do you thrive? When we are getting the wrong fuel, when we're only getting the cans and the salty soups, how do we make sure that you're actually having the fuel that you need to succeed at school or at work or avoid chronic illness? We've seen, actually, with our community health needs assessment for the last 12 years that I've been on this board, that diabetes and obesity in underserved and minority populations have been identified as an issue. And yet, actually working collaboratively with our health partners to make that change has been definitely a struggle. The work that the Office of Food Security has done to connect our food pantries to each other, to connect them to better health outcomes, to get better donations. We've actually equipped 83% of our food pantries with refrigerators and freezers so that they can push out fruit and vegetables and dairy, the things that you would want to feed to your kids. And I think that there's such a misnomer right now that this is over, right? That pandemic's done, therefore food insecurity doesn't exist anymore. We actually saw a 26% increase in pantry utilization just this last calendar year. That's above the 76% that took place during the pandemic and above the 30% the year after. So we're still not at the top of that, of the peak of food insecurity and need in our community. And that's what's scary to me. I don't think people realize that Ridgewood SSA right now is feeding over 200 families per month. There are 272 Ridgewood residents who get SNAP, which is formerly known as food stamps. There are 1,968 Ridgewood addresses registered with Community Food Bank as receiving food from food pantries.
Yeah, it's a big, big deal. And I remember, we talked about this when I worked for you, how it's usually 2 years after an economic downturn where the need increases the most because people have used up their savings, they've maxed out their credit cards, they have to pay their mortgage or their rent, their car payments, insurance, and then there's very, very little left for groceries. So that's why the need is so critical right now.
And in communities like ours where cost of living is expensive, rent eats first. This is where so many of our residents are facing challenges. It's expensive to live here, and therefore, the reliance on our food pantries has been so significant, and that's why we both need to change the dynamic, get people connected to services that can help them lift themselves out of the food insecurity that they're facing. And why we also need, as our neighbors, to step up and make the donations of healthy foods and not just like that jar of leftover sun-dried tomatoes in the back of your cabinet that you haven't eaten in 2 years, but healthy foods that you would want to feed your family. And with, especially in Ridgewood, both food pantries are equipped, actually all three are equipped with refrigeration to be able to accept the healthier food donations, and also to understand that things like toothpaste or diapers or feminine hygiene products are not covered by food stamps or WIC, and how much that takes out of your budget. So our food pantries need those things as well. Those are great donations too.
Yeah, like I said, laundry soap. And again, people have a hard time understanding that once you hit that place where you need to have assistance, it takes about 10 years for people to get themselves off of it because they have to replenish their savings accounts again. And, they have to kind of get back on their feet. It takes 10 years. Is that right?
Well, it takes 10, in the 2008 study that was done about the 2008 recession, it took 10 years for the community to reset and go back to pre-recession levels of hunger. Where I'm nervous is that it's not been 2 years, that we're still 4 years, we're 4 years out from the beginning of the pandemic, and we still have not hit the peak of food insecurity in our community. And so I don't know what that timeline is going to be. I can tell you that the county has pushed out about $2 million worth of grants to our food pantries to make them more resilient and more ready for this marathon. And that was, Ridgewood SSA, we helped them fix their floor. Other places it's been providing computers or refrigeration. But the bottom line is we know this is going to be a marathon, and we need all of our residents to be part of that to make sure that we are equipped. I always hear Cory Booker say, if you want to go fast, you go alone. You want to go far, you go together. Right. And that's why I was so amazed by the generosity and kindness of Ridgewood residents during the pandemic and the Feed the Front Lines efforts of what you did to not just feed Ridgewood residents, but residents throughout the county, and the food pantry deliveries and the smiling faces of kids who got the dignity of a hot meal that they got to sit down and enjoy with their families meant so much. And that program not only kept the restaurants in business too, but it fed our community and nurtured that collaborative soul that we're in this together.
Yeah, I'm really proud of that. And I'm really proud of everyone that was involved in it. All of our volunteers were just incredible, driving those meals every day for, I don't even know, for, was it like 3 years?
It was years. It was years, and the millions of dollars that, were invested into the restaurants and that they were able to keep their lights on was invaluable. But the impact that it had in the broader scope of the county was really so meaningful.
Oh, yeah, it was a huge impact. I want to talk a little bit about these hot lunch programs, because we're hearing a lot about it now with Governor Walz running for vice president. That was an unbelievably successful program in Minnesota. And I know that there are other states that have hot lunch programs in place for all their students. So is that something that Bergen County could consider?
So, during the pandemic, in some of the school districts where a majority of the kids were, a large percentage of the kids were receiving free reduced lunch, there was hot lunch for all. And what was so wonderful about that is it enabled kids to get those meals without stigma. Mm-hmm. And, we see right now, we know that there's under enrollment, not only in the free and reduced lunch program, but also in all benefits like SNAP and other things that could be putting food on people's tables. And it's because of pride. People don't want to be labeled and don't want the stigma of needing help. And if you have hot lunch for all, first of all, you're making sure that there's a nutritious meal for everyone. When you're talking about hot lunch for all, you're talking about making sure that every kid has a hot meal or every kid has a meal, period. And for so many kids, that's the one meal of their day. And it really, it's estimated right now that 1 in 8 kids in the state of New Jersey do not have adequate access to food. And when you think about what that number means as far as future productivity, like how can you learn? We can't talk about college or economic success if you don't have the foundation of learning. And, not to quote the Snickers commercial, but when you're hangry at that, and you're not able to really absorb much, and you're not able to thrive in your workplace, you're not able to maintain proper health, let alone thrive and learn and grow. So, I think it's an interesting project to consider. It's definitely something that I know there are great minds that are looking at this and seeing how we can incorporate this throughout the state, and hopeful that we can get to that place. But in the interim, we also need to make sure that our neighbors who need that help are registering for the free and reduced lunch. I think in certain communities, especially like Ridgewood, there are people who need the service but aren't registering for the program. Some of it's because they don't speak language, or 7 million forms come home at the beginning of the school year and they're just overwhelmed. Our pantries definitely need to be doing more to help their clients register for these programs so that the true need can be understood in our communities and in our school lunchrooms.
So I want to remind our listeners that we do have 3 food pantries here in Ridgewood. We have SSA, which is at the train station. It's the red door. And then the Ridgewood YMCA also has a very robust food pantry. They service communities outside of Ridgewood as well. And then we have Ridgecrest, which is over off of kind of Heights and Crest Road. I want to say it's a low income housing unit for seniors. Is that correct?
It's affordable senior housing, yeah.
Yeah,
And I will
again.
tell you, seniors are one of those populations that are really of concern to me, because we have actually seen such an under enrollment of SNAP benefits in our senior population. And part of that is because pride, part of that is because of technological challenges in filling out the paperwork that's required. And when you're living on a fixed income, when you're relying upon your pension or your Social Security or your investments that you've made, and it's a finite amount that you get per month, it just doesn't stretch as far. We've seen, gas prices are going down a bit, but it's still expensive. And while prices in our supermarkets are getting better, it's still challenging. We just did a thing with my interns over the summer. The average family of 4 receives $171 of SNAP per week. And to try and figure out what that meant you could buy for that amount of money, and how could you possibly stretch it to meet the 21 meals in the week that your family was going to need to eat, was really challenging for the kids. And it took us 4 hours of food shopping and 3 kids on calculators and lots of coupon collecting to manage to get a cart full that we weren't even sure was going to actually, if you had a teenager, there was no way that cart was going to meet the needs of your family. It is an interesting, as the prices are where they are today, we have to be mindful of how we stretch that. And too many of our residents are needing to turn to our food pantries to make those ends meet.
So I want to know, do you have a theory on why groceries are so expensive?
When gas goes up, it costs more to ship things. It costs more to get things into your stores. It costs more to heat chicken coops. It costs more to do everything. So it all builds on itself. I do see prices starting to curb or flatten, but it doesn't. It certainly is a challenge if the dollars just don't stretch quite as far right now as they did. And it is all about, initially it was about supply chain. Toilet paper was expensive because you couldn't access it. So when there's scarcity, the prices go up. And I think that when they're there at that level, it's hard for them to dip back down again because the stores feel that they can get that price now. So I think there's definitely some flattening that will continue to happen as our economy continues to strengthen, and our global situation certainly does also contribute to gas prices. So, this kind of also links into some of the other efforts that I'm working on as far as the utilization of electric vehicles in our fleets and lowering our carbon footprints and making sure that we're using less fuel to fuel our buildings in the county, and all those things that can continue to save money here for us and ultimately make our environment stronger too. So like all of those efforts are all interlinked. So that is definitely part of what I'm working on now is putting forward this energy action plan for the county so we can continue to make strides in that direction too.
Well, that's the next question I was going to ask you. If you're reelected, what some of your top priorities are for your next term, and how do you plan on engaging the community in achieving those goals?
Yeah, this energy action plan is something I'm really excited about, actually, and we're currently in the process where we're auditing all of our buildings and our energy utilization and our fleet and how we can migrate that over to become more electric vehicles. I've been very committed on issues regarding our environment. I was the spearhead of banning styrofoam in all of our county purchasing and in our county parks so that we could have less of an environmental impact. We formulated a shared service. Ridgewood has one as well, but in the other part of the county, we funded a styrofoam densifier so that we could be taking that out of the waste stream and having that as a shared service for, I think it's now up to 15 municipalities in the Ridgefield area of the county. So it's looking at how we safeguard our community and our environment for the next generation, preserving open space, our parks master plan, all of those things. We saw during the pandemic how critical open space was. And in the southern part of our county, where there's more density, we just actually purchased a Rails to Trails line with Green Acres funding, so that it's, so that we can have more open space. And we're continuing to look at issues as that. We're working right now where we got funding the original tranche for funding to expand the bottleneck by Route 17, which will be a huge infrastructure project. And ultimately, by having less traffic and less idling there, that will also increase air quality. And we're continuing to advocate for the Bergen part of the Bergen Hudson Light Rail so that we can get more cars off our roads and also improve our air quality. So that's something that I'm currently working on very actively. Also, I founded our LGBTQ advisory committee here in the county, and we do an annual LGBTQ youth summit, which makes these kids feel less alone, realizing that there are other kids going through the same struggles in schools all across the county, and helping them find their voices and understand that they're part of a community. And that's something I'm proud of the work that we're doing there in the county too, sending the message to every community as we raise flags and have ethnic celebrations here, that every single member of our community is vital, and we love them for their authentic selves and for the vibrancy that they bring to the overarching tapestry here in Bergen County. So that is someplace else where I've dug in and done a bunch of work as well. So every year there seems to be new challenges that we don't anticipate. Had you told me 5 years ago that I would know the difference between a forklift and a pallet jack and every level of commercial grade refrigeration, I would have, I would have laughed at you,
Yeah.
and so I think part of the challenge here is being prepared for what's next. We're doing a lot of shared services. We now have shared service arrangements with all 70 municipalities and more of our school boards, so that we could try and keep costs down, keep life affordable here in Bergen County. I think shared services is such a big focus for us because we see that we can do more together. And
And
that's
it's
something
cost
I know that
effective too, right?
yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. We want to make sure we're doing things at the right economy of scale, and that we're saving taxpayer dollars where we can, so that we can invest it in the services that are needed. Since I've been on this board, we talk about other things I'm proud of. We've been one of the first communities to end veterans homelessness and end chronic homelessness. And that doesn't mean that we don't have some homeless veterans. It just means once we find them, we have them housed within 90 days.
That's a really big deal.
It is, especially for individuals who've put their lives on the line to defend our freedom. They deserve the dignity of a home. They deserve the outreach and the support and finding employment, and we continue to invest in that. And that was some place where our predecessors had made significant cuts. Cuts in education, cuts in veterans, and cuts in consumer affairs, which allowed people to prey on our seniors. For us, and I really believe that the way you budget, where you spend your money, you can talk about things up, till the cows come home, but where and how you spend your dollars talks volumes about what your priorities are. And for me, our priorities are our kids. It's our mental health services. It's making sure our communities are safe. We just built a beautiful training facility for first responders so that they can respond to current situations and have the right tools to keep themselves safe and to keep our communities safe. Big priority for us.
We just interviewed the new chief of police. He's been serving in that role for a year, and we just interviewed him. And one of the things that I was so delighted to hear is that they are working at becoming more compassionate in law enforcement, and even to the point where they are dressing in a more casual way. And I think that's very exciting for me, because now they're looked on as being part of the community instead of a sort of a force in the community. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I just met your new chief too. I was at a Ridgewood interfaith meeting of all of the pastors and imams and rabbis, and had the privilege of sitting with him and chatting with him too about the focus on community policing and what that means. And I think so many of our police departments are doing that. And then one of my favorite parts about being a county commissioner is I get to kind of see the best practices in all these different communities and cross-pollinate those ideas so that we all can learn from each other. And I think that's, I'm, this too well, Jeannie, is I am a policy geek and can get into the weeds and talk about the nitty-gritty about so many issues, because I really, I love to dig in and solve for those problems, but I really fully believe that we are stronger when we learn from each other. And that's why I love to go to the National Association of Counties meetings and the New Jersey Association of Counties, and really understand that, because none of our problems are novel. to learn what others are doing to solve for them makes us smarter and enables us to put in greater efficiencies and learn and strengthen our community by, ongoing dialogue.
That's right. And I want to know, how has your legal background influenced your approach to policy making and problem solving?
Well, I think not only am I a lawyer, I went back at age 40 to go get my master's in public administration. And I think that the marriage of both of those degrees have taught me to ask the good questions and to kind of not wait too patiently for those answers either. I definitely feel sometimes like I'm cross-examining, but it is definitely the key is not only asking the questions, it's listening to the answers and to understand that you have something to learn from every single person in that room. And every resident who's experiencing something, there is always value that you take from those interactions that enables you to come up with a better solution. And that I think they're in a time where we are right now, where there's so much noise of trying to divide us. There is actually so much that brings us together, and that coming to those solutions and how we help and support each other is at the core. And so, for me, that's why I'm so passionate about what I get to do at this county level of government. That's why, I wake up excited every day about the new challenges that we're tackling. And there are a plethora of new challenges every day. Part of what makes this community a place where so many want to live and work and raise their families and age in place with dignity is because of that heart and soul of our community, where we really do care about our neighbors.
Well, you know what, your passion is infectious.
I grew up in a family where it was about service. It was about what we do for each other, and how lucky we are to live in this country. And that's part of what makes this country so special, and this community in particular so terrific. So we can have great parks and we can have great hospitals and amazing schools, but it's really the hearts and souls of our community, our neighbors and our volunteers and the people who are giving of themselves to try and make this world just a little bit better.
For sure. And, that's not to say that there aren't some critical issues at the county level. So if you had to, so what would you say that some of the top 3 issues are that voters should be aware of?
I think everyone has their own top 3. You go door to door, it's always taxes, taxes, taxes. And that's, it's about costs and affordability and making sure that we're delivering more for less. And that takes a lot of creativity to figure out how we can provide for all the needs and the continued expansion of those needs, with spiraling costs. Health insurance costs and other costs that go on in the community are not abating, but the needs are also ever present. So how do you balance that? And that's, I think, the hardest work that we have to do every single day, is making those choices and evaluating the programs and looking at the data about how we're making the biggest impact, and making sure we're making smart decisions. And that, the other issues like transportation, whether it's, you have a young adult with special needs and they need to get to work, or you're a senior and you can't drive anymore, how you get from place A to place B, that community transportation that the county provides to get to doctor's appointments is important. How we continue to propagate mass transit and other ways of getting around is also pretty key. Economic issues. I've been really involved in our small business community, making sure that we're pushing out information about state grants that are available that can help them renovate and get money back from the state for the renovations that they're doing, or if they sign a long-term lease, that they can get money back from the Economic Development Authority to really be able to fuel their growth and their ability to thrive, because small businesses are such a key part of not just our downtowns, they're the realization of so many people's dreams. And so how we make sure that they thrive in our community is pretty key. I sit on the Economic Resiliency Council, and we're looking at things like speeding up, providing additional level of having an inspection department here at the county, so that we're a force multiplier for towns, so that things like the fact that one fire inspector goes on vacation for 2 weeks, that the world doesn't come grinding to a halt. So we're looking at being a force multiplier for that as well, and just trying to listen and learn about I met with a small business owner who has a skills gap, and how we can then put forward a training program at the community college to meet for that, so that this business can continue to have a vibrant workforce coming in to provide for the employment needs that they continually have. Those are key things. So, keeping business thriving here in Bergen County is important, and making sure also we're getting ready for FIFA. The World Cup is a year and a half away, and so we're doing a lot to try and figure out how not only do we showcase our amazing county for the entire world, whose eyes are going to be on MetLife Stadium, but how do we make sure that our businesses also maximize the way that they're communicating with the guests that we're going to have here, so that they can maximize their profitability during that period of time.
Well, hopefully that'll give American Dream a little boost.
It's not just going to be American Dream. I mean, hopefully, Ridgewood downtown can have a restaurant week during the World Cup and feature, different restaurants, and get people into the downtown to use our restaurants and our tourist facilities and all of those kinds of things that, our guests are going to use, whether it's nail salons or, supermarkets, that they get to kind of, it's about 6 weeks that we're going to have guests here in our community, and we can really have this opportunity to, people will be staying at the Park Ridge Marriott. They'll be staying, not just in the Meadowlands. They'll be staying all over Bergen County. And so we're going to want to make sure that they're ready to go, and that they have their digital profiles, up and accessible, so that people can use their services.
Yeah, it's super
And there's
exciting.
grant money to do some of that, by the way, right now through the EDA.
Oh, that's awesome. It gives us all something to look forward to, that's for sure. So listen, I just want to say thank you again for coming on to this program and giving us so much of your time. I don't want to take too much of it up. So I want to close with thanking you for all the work that you've done. I know that you're going to show up at the Oktoberfest here in Ridgewood and help collect some perishable food items for social services, and to kind of give the farmers at the farmers market a little shot in the arm so they can have a really good day that day. So
yeah,
it's very, very exciting. Is there anything else that you want to share with us before we close?
I just want to say thank you, first of all, for having me on and giving me the opportunity. I could talk for 6 more hours about different programs that we're working on, from, young adults with special needs and making sure they're part of our workforce, to things we're doing on the addiction front and with domestic violence. But ultimately, the most important thing is I want people to know that they can reach out to me, and that I'm always eager for input about how we can continue to make our communities even stronger. I think Bergen County I've lived here my entire life. I grew up in Woodcliff Lake right down the road. I've lived here forever. I've raised my kids in this community like as you have. And it just, I know that we have a special place, but I know that we can continue to always evolve and make it even stronger. So I look forward to input as well. And I just want to say thank you so much for this conversation.
Well, thanks again for being here. And if people want to reach out to you, where should they go? Do you have a website? Do you have an email address?
First of all, they can always call me at my office, which is 201-336-6281, or they can email me at tracyzur@co.bergen.nj.us.
Great. And I'll include that in our show notes. And, keep up the good work. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you so much. And you too, Jeannie. The work that goes on in Ridgewood really does set the mark so high. And I'm so excited to not just be with you on the 13th, but really continue to work together to do so many wonderful things in our community.
Sounds good. Thank you.